Welcome, dear friends, to Old Age Wisdom. Why do many older individuals seem to lose their spark after reaching 80? Even those who were quite active and mentally sharp just a few years prior often start showing a decline. The common belief is that what happens post 80 is merely a matter of our genes or sheer luck. However, this is far from the complete picture. In this discussion, we will explore 5 unexpected, often overlooked, and seldom discussed reasons that explain why numerous older adults find it challenging to live long or maintain good health beyond the age of 80. These are not the usual factors like diet, smoking habits, or exercise routines. Instead, they are deeper, more subtle elements that frequently go unnoticed, even in people who have diligently followed most health advice. The encouraging news is that once you are aware of these factors, you can take proactive steps to address them. So, if you have ever wondered what truly hinders longevity after 80 and how to safeguard against it while there is still time, please stay with me. These 5 unexpected reasons might just help you reshape your aging journey before it is too late. Now let us begin. The first and often missed reason many older people do not live long after 80 is the quiet disappearance of what experts term microsocial engagement. These are not your deep friendships or large family gatherings, though those are, of course, still very important. Rather, we are talking about the small, seemingly minor interactions that used to punctuate your everyday life, often without you even consciously noticing them. Consider how frequently you used to exchange a simple hello with the postman, share a brief joke with the cashier at the local Kirana store, or nod to a neighbor walking their dog across the street. These tiny moments of human contact were not just pleasantries. They were actively regulating your nervous system, reinforcing your sense of belonging within your community, and keeping your brain's social wiring sharp and actively engaged. It is these small, everyday connections that subtly weave the fabric of our social well-being. If you find our discussions at Old Age Wisdom valuable, please do give this video a like. However, after reaching 80, many older adults may stop visiting stores themselves. They might start ordering necessities online or ask family members for assistance. Casual chats with strangers may reduce because their hearing is not as sharp as it once was. Or they might discontinue their outdoor walks simply because the weather feels a bit too chilly or their knees do not feel as steady. As these small social touchpoints begin to fade, something else diminishes too: their vitality. What is truly interesting is that most people do not even realize this gradual change is happening. They might think they are merely simplifying their lives. But in reality, they are unintentionally removing the low-level social interactions that stimulate brain function, elevate mood, and signal to the body that they are still an active part of the living, breathing, everyday world around them. This slow erosion of minor social connections can have a significant, albeit subtle, impact on overall well-being and longevity. It does not need to be anything complicated. I have known gentlemen in their 80s who remained remarkably sharp simply because they made it a daily habit to walk to the same neighborhood coffee shop each morning. They would greet the same staff members and nod to the same few familiar faces they encountered on the corner. That brief 5-minute stretch of human connection was not just a routine, it was a vital lifeblood. It provided structure to their day, kept them accountable in a gentle way, and, importantly, made them feel seen and acknowledged. There is a biological cost when these small interactions disappear. The brain interprets loneliness, both the profound kind and this more subtle, everyday kind, as a stressor. This stress response can alter hormone levels, increase inflammation throughout the body, and weaken the immune system. Most significantly, it can begin to shrink the neural networks in the brain that are responsible for essential functions like memory, attention, and emotional regulation, making one feel older, faster. So, if you have noticed that you are not talking to as many people during your day, or if you have simply stopped going out for small errands, no longer initiate casual conversations, or have started feeling somewhat invisible within your community, it is time to actively reverse that trend. Because those moments of connection, even the ones that seem utterly forgettable or trivial, are quietly sending powerful messages to your brain and your body. You still matter. You are still part of something. And that underlying message is one of the most potent medicines for staying alive, not just in terms of years, but more importantly, in spirit. Maintaining these small, everyday social links is crucial for a vibrant later life. Your engagement is very important to us here at Old Age Wisdom. If you are finding this useful, do consider subscribing. Another quiet reason many individuals do not make it far past 80 is something that, on the surface, appears to be wisdom, being excessively careful. However, there is a very fine line between being prudently careful and becoming overly cautious. Once that line is crossed, the consequences are rarely immediate, but they are always cumulative over time. It often starts with good intentions. Perhaps you slipped on the stairs once or nearly lost your balance while walking on the pavement, so you decide to reduce your outdoor walks. You might stop bending to reach for items on low shelves or avoid climbing into the back seat of a car. You begin to sit down more frequently and stay seated for longer periods. People around you might even applaud your caution, saying things like, "Don't push yourself," or "Take it easy." And before you fully realize it, you have inadvertently created a life that feels safe, but has also become very still and inactive. Here is what is seldom discussed. When movement ceases, strength also diminishes. This loss of strength is not just in your legs or arms, but also affects your coordination, your balance, and your inner stability. Your body is not like a machine that simply rests to maintain efficiency. It is more akin to a garden that requires constant tending and activity. When physical activity slows down to a mere trickle, things do not just remain the same, they actively weaken. One of the first areas where this decline becomes apparent is in the core muscles. Most people do not fully appreciate how crucial these deep trunk muscles are for almost everything we do: standing, walking, lifting, and even just getting out of a chair. If these vital muscles go unused, even for a few weeks, they begin to shrink. And when they shrink, your balance inevitably suffers. You might start to wobble more, and thus, the cycle of inactivity and weakness deepens further. I recall a gentleman named Walter, aged 82, who stopped his regular evening walks after he slipped once on a rainy day. He did not break any bones, it was just a scare. But that single scare was enough to change his routine. He went from walking a mile every evening to mostly sitting and watching television. Within just 6 months, he had lost a significant 10 pounds of muscle mass. His legs, he said, felt like jelly. His doctor warned him about the consequences, but the damage had already begun to set in. Walter did not stop his walks because he was inherently weak. Rather, he became weak because he stopped walking. Now, I am not suggesting that you should ignore real risks. There are certainly smart ways to protect yourself, such as using handrails, wearing stable and comfortable footwear, keeping walkways clear of obstacles, and even using a cane if it provides necessary support. But there is a crucial difference between managing risk and completely surrendering to it. When fear starts to dictate your movements, your body gradually begins to forget how to move at all, leading to a decline in physical capabilities. So, if you have noticed that you are doing less, not because you physically cannot, but primarily because you are afraid of what might happen if you do, it is important to pay close attention to that feeling. Ask yourself honestly, am I genuinely protecting myself, or am I slowly allowing myself to disappear into inactivity? Because staying alive and vibrant after 80 is not just about avoiding falls. It is about continuing to move, even if you have to do it more carefully, more slowly, or more deliberately than before. Movement is how your body remembers that it is still needed. It is how your various systems stay online and functional, how your brain remains alert and engaged, and how your heart continues to pump with purpose. Keeping active, within safe limits, is a cornerstone of healthy aging. We at Old Age Wisdom believe in empowering you with such knowledge, so please do consider subscribing if you have not already. A third, often silent, factor is disrupted sleep cycles resulting from irregular light exposure. Inside your body, there is a silent clock that does not tick audibly but governs nearly everything: your mood, your metabolism, your immune system, and even how your brain repairs itself during the night. After the age of 80, this internal clock, known as your circadian rhythm, becomes particularly sensitive to disturbances. One of the primary reasons it can go off track is insufficient exposure to natural light during the daytime, and, conversely, too much exposure to artificial light at night. You might not notice the effects immediately. Perhaps you have started sleeping a little more during the day, finding yourself nodding off in the afternoon sun. Or maybe you have stopped going outside as regularly, especially during the colder months of the year. You might turn on the television in the evening or leave bright lights on until late while reading or watching a movie. Each of these seemingly harmless changes can, when combined, quietly confuse your body about when it is supposed to be alert and when it should be resting. Your body fundamentally relies on natural light to maintain its rhythm. Bright morning light signals to your brain that it is time to wake up, to get moving, and to direct energy where it is needed. Conversely, darkness at night triggers the release of melatonin, a gentle hormone that prepares you for deep, healing sleep. However, when your eyes do not receive an adequate amount of that natural daytime light, or when your evenings are consistently filled with the artificial brightness emanating from screens or lamps, your internal signaling system gets scrambled. The result of this disruption can be difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. You might wake up feeling groggy and unrefreshed, even after spending a full 8 hours in bed. You might also find your energy levels lagging throughout the day, or your memory feeling a bit fuzzier than usual. Over time, this chronic sleep disruption affects more than just your energy levels. It can weaken your immune function, make your mood less stable, and even increase your risk of cognitive decline. There is also the important issue of vitamin D, which your body naturally produces when your skin is exposed to sunlight. After the age of 80, your skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D decreases significantly, which means that regular outdoor exposure becomes even more critical for maintaining adequate levels. Without sufficient vitamin D, your bones, muscles, and immune system can all suffer negative consequences. I once spoke with a lady named Helen, who was 84 and had been feeling increasingly tired and disoriented. Her blood tests looked normal, her diet had not changed, and she was not taking any new medications. The turning point for her came when her doctor simply recommended that she spend 20 minutes every morning sitting by a window with the blinds wide open, and to turn off all her screens at least 1 hour before going to bed. Within just 2 weeks, her sleep quality improved noticeably. So did her memory and her overall mood. It was not a new pill that brought about this change. It was simply light. So, if you have been spending most of your time indoors with the curtains drawn, or if your evenings are typically filled with the blue light emitted from a phone or television screen, it is time to make a conscious shift. Try to get outside within an hour of waking up each morning, even if it is just for a few minutes on your porch or balcony. Allow your eyes and skin to soak in that beneficial morning light. In the evening, make an effort to dim the lights in your home, letting your body naturally prepare to wind down. These gentle rhythms are more than just for comfort. They are essential for survival. What many people do not realize is that the body does not just get old from simple wear and tear. It also ages due to disorganization, from its various systems being out of sync with each other. Restoring your natural light cues, your sleep schedule, and your daily rhythms is how you bring that vital organization back into your body. That is how you effectively tell your body, even at 85 years old, we are still on schedule. We are still in motion. We are still here. By the time many individuals reach their 80s, they have often carried more loss than most younger people can fully imagine. Perhaps a spouse, a sibling, a lifelong friend, or sometimes even a child. While the outside world may offer polite sympathy, what is rarely acknowledged is just how much those accumulated losses can weigh, not just in memory, but physically within the body. What frequently happens after 80 is not just grief. It is a pattern of emotional suppression. It is the slow, quiet habit of swallowing pain instead of expressing it, of putting on a brave face because one feels they should be accustomed to loss by now, or because there might be no one left who truly understands the profound depth of what has been lost. But the truth is, the body does not forget. When grief is not processed, when it is not spoken, shared, or fully felt, it does not simply disappear. Instead, it gets stored within. And over time, that emotional weight begins to manifest physically. This suppressed grief can start to affect your immune system, your digestion, and your sleep patterns. It can alter your hormone levels and put your nervous system into a constant state of quiet, underlying tension. And the hardest part is that this often happens silently. On the outside, you might appear calm. You might even say you are fine. But if your shoulders have gradually grown a little heavier, if your breathing has become a bit shallower, or if your inner spark has dimmed just enough that you no longer quite feel like yourself, unexpressed grief might be the underlying reason, even if you have not spoken about it for years. I remember a gentleman named George, 86, who lost his wife of 60 years. He did not cry much, saying it was not his way and that he was doing all right. However, within a year, he lost weight, stopped attending the senior center, and began experiencing trouble sleeping, not due to any specific illness, but because his body was carrying a sorrow it had never been allowed to fully release. You see, emotional pain does not need to be overtly dramatic to be damaging. By the time its effects show up in your physical health, the connection is not always immediately obvious. What often keeps people alive and well past 80 is not just physical strength, it is emotional ventilation. It is having safe, open outlets for sadness, for fear, for longing. It is being able to say, I miss her, or I am still angry about this, or I feel alone, and not being judged for those feelings. That kind of emotional release is what allows the heart to breathe again. And when the heart can breathe, the body can begin to heal. This is why people who live long and well tend to have some kind of outlet for their emotions. Perhaps it is a trusted friend, a journal, their faith, a community group, or even a therapist who helps them unpack the stories and emotions they have carried for decades. Whatever the form, the principle remains the same. What gets expressed can be transformed. What gets buried tends to fester. We at Old Age Wisdom encourage you to find healthy outlets. Your thoughts are valuable. Please consider subscribing. So, if you have been holding something in, not because you want to, but because you did not know where to put it or how to express it, it is time to make space for those feelings, not just for the sake of your emotional well-being, but for your very life. Because the truth is, the heart can only carry so much unresolved emotion before it starts to quietly shut down. And if you want to make it well past 80, not just breathing but truly alive, you have to allow your heart to feel as well. One of the most invisible reasons many people do not thrive past 80 is the slow erosion of something we often take for granted until it is gone: daily purpose. This is not life purpose in some grand, philosophical sense, but the simple, everyday kind. The kind that makes you get out of bed in the morning with something to do, somewhere to go, or someone to see. Purpose does not have to be dramatic or world-changing. It can be as simple as watering the plants before the sun gets too hot, feeding the neighborhood cat that waits patiently outside your door, writing a letter to your granddaughter, or fixing that loose hinge on the back gate. But when these little routines start slipping away, when mornings arrive with no particular reason to get moving and evenings come without anything noteworthy to reflect upon, something inside begins to quietly shut down. The body listens intently to the mind. And when the mind no longer sees a compelling reason to push forward, the body invariably follows suit. Appetite may drop, movement naturally slows, and without a sense of purpose, the physiological systems that used to regulate your health start to go quiet. Not because they are broken, but because they are, in a sense, waiting for a reason to switch back on. It is easy to miss this gradual decline because it happens so subtly. Maybe your weekly bridge game got canceled permanently. Perhaps the church group or community gathering stopped meeting as regularly. Maybe your family visits less often now, or your old volunteer role ended when your knees started aching. You might tell yourself it is normal, that it is just a part of aging. But deep down, you can often feel it. The days blending together, each one a little quieter and less distinct than the last. I once met a lady named Ruth, aged 88, who seemed more alive and vibrant than most people half her age. She was not wealthy, she was not in perfect physical health, and she was not surrounded by a large, bustling family. But she possessed one thing that never left her: routine and purpose. Every Monday, she diligently wrote postcards to shut-ins from her church. Every Thursday, she made a large batch of soup and froze it for a local shelter. And every day, she would sit at her window around 4 p.m. to watch the neighborhood children walk home from school. She knew their names, she waved to them, and they waved back. It was not a glamorous life, but it gave her days texture. It gave her heart a rhythm. It gave her life a sense of continuity. And that is the secret that no one often explicitly tells you. The body stays alive as long as it believes it is needed. Purpose, even in its smallest and simplest forms, is like fuel. It tells your cells to keep repairing, your organs to keep functioning, and your brain to keep learning and engaging. When you lose that intrinsic sense of relevance, When you begin to feel like your presence no longer truly matters to anyone or anything, the inner flame starts to dim. That is why people who live beyond 80 with grace and vitality usually have something anchoring their day. It could be tending a small garden, caring for a pet, keeping a journal, following a daily ritual, making a regular phone call to a friend, or even a simple morning prayer. What matters is not the scale of the activity, but its consistency. It is the profound knowing that when you open your eyes in the morning, there is a reason to rise, a reason to engage with the day ahead. So, if you have been feeling a little adrift lately, as if your days have lost their shape or meaning, please do not ignore that feeling. It is not just sadness, it is a signal. Your body is asking for rhythm again, for structure, for connection, for purpose. Because at the end of the day, longevity is not just about the heart physically beating. It is about the heart wanting to beat. And that quiet, persistent desire to keep going, to stay connected, to still matter, that is what often carries people past 80 and into lives that continue to feel full and meaningful. As we conclude this video on old age wisdom, I want to leave you with a simple yet powerful truth. Most people do not fade after 80 because of a single, dramatic moment. It is rarely a specific diagnosis, a fall, or a particular birthday that suddenly changes everything. More often, it is the slow, quiet fading of habits, rhythms, and reasons to stay engaged with life. These changes are often so subtle, so gradual, that you may not realize what is happening until something inside feels dimmer than it used to. But the good news is this: just as these shifts happen slowly, they can also be reversed slowly. One walk outside, one extra conversation with someone at the store, one small stretch in the morning, one thing you do today not because you have to, but because it brings structure, connection, or meaning. That is how you begin turning things around. So, think back to the 5 unexpected reasons we covered: loss of micro-social engagement, overcautious inactivity, disrupted sleep from irregular light, emotional suppression, and loss of daily purpose. Which one surprised you the most? Which one felt uncomfortably familiar? And more importantly, which one are you willing to act on, even in a small way, starting today? The truth is, you have more power than you think, not to stop aging, but to change the way you age. If you are willing to stay awake to the quiet shifts, guard your rhythms, protect your purpose, and let yourself feel what needs to be felt, then there is a good chance you will not just reach 80, but live beyond it fully, deeply, and on your own terms. Thank you for joining us. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below sharing one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it. Your thoughts motivate us. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to Old Age Wisdom, and share. Your support helps us create good content. Thanks for watching.